It's always an interesting mix when we think about religion and money. Sometimes money is a very helpful thing in terms of faith and the church and institutions, but other times we know that institutions get in trouble with money. And so Jesus is not surprising today. He sits in the treasury and it sits in the temple, and he watches. He watches the relationship between people and money. And what captures his imagination is this poor little woman, unnoticed by most people, who walks into the temple and she puts in a few cents. And Jesus holds her up and says, she's the one who understands what the reign of God is about. She gets it. You know, it's interesting, Jesus is not saying that she gets it because she gives so much money or that she gives so much out of the little that she has. It's not an economic thing that Jesus is praising her for. As a matter of fact, right before that, Jesus condemns the religious leaders, the scribes and the Pharisees, because they exploit the poor and the widows. You know, that Jesus says, instead of seeing the widow as someone they should protect, they see her as someone to exploit. And so Jesus condemns them for trying to get as much as they can out of a widow. But what Jesus sees in her is something that, you know, again, it's a much bigger lesson for all of us. It's not about money, it's about attitude. The widow, you know, the widow is always a person in the time of Jesus, as many are today, the symbol of someone who's vulnerable, who's lost a lot. Certainly we don't know much about this widow, but we know for certain she lost her husband and probably lost a lot of her support, a lot of the people around her. And so she's a sign of someone who's struggling to live, a widow, just like the orphan, two symbols in Jesus' world of people who are vulnerable. But you know, here's this woman who walks into the temple, unnoticed by most people, who could have, because of her losses, because of all that she's endured, because of perhaps the treatment she's received, could have begun to pull in, gotten angry, frightened, began to protect herself and all that she had, and begun to believe that it was all over, that the best days were behind her. But Jesus looks at her and says, here is a woman who is free. Here's a woman who's, despite her losses, despite all that's happened in her life, despite the past and despite whatever may happen in the future, she's free. And she can give what she has generously. You know, so for Jesus, the widow becomes a symbol of the reign of God. You know, as Jesus so often says to us, don't be afraid. Take what you've been given as a gift, and it's all a gift, and give it back as a gift. Be free. And don't be tied up in fear and worry and anger and regrets about the past or fear about the future. Take what you've been given today as a gift and give it away as a gift. It's not about money. It's about attitude. It's about living the life that God has given us today, recognizing it as a gift and giving it away